Welcome to the demonstration of Tzunami Deployer. During this demonstration, we will perform a migration from LiveLink to SharePoint 2010 using Tzunami Deployer. This presentation will go over the four main steps of the migration process. First, we will export the source content from LiveLink. This can be done from within the deployer or as a standalone process. We will then load the content to a deployer project. Next, we will perform the virtual deployment along with all of its relevant configurations. And finally, we'll commit our migration specifications to SharePoint 2010. We will start by creating a new deployer project. When we click on File, New, Deployer will create a new project for us to work on. We are prompted to give our project a name. We'll call it Demo. We'll now specify the project folder. Next, we'll choose our source and target systems from the list. For this demo, we'll choose to deploy from LiveLink and deploy to our target, SharePoint 2010. Our new project is now ready for migration. As you can see, a deployer project is divided into two areas. The top area is for the source content, in our case, the content that will be extracted from LiveLink, and the bottom area is the target, SharePoint 2010. In order to load the LiveLink content, we must first export it. This is done by right-clicking the source panel of the deployer window and selecting Export LiveLink to TDX. The LiveLink exporter wizard appears, and we click Next. First, we need to provide information on how to connect to LiveLink and which type of items we want to extract. We provide our LiveLink server name and our credentials and move on to the Items tab. Here we choose which types of items we wish to export and how item versions should be handled. Under the Advanced Settings tab, we decide how to handle attachments, security settings, categories, and additional node attributes. The next step will be to navigate through the LiveLink containers and select the content we wish to export. We can browse through our presentation folder to view its contents, such as a discussion board, tasks, a project with some news, and so on. We'll choose our presentation folder and choose Next. When exporting large amounts of content, the filter can be used to export only certain items which comply with certain conditions. For example, we can choose to only export content that was created before or after a set date. We will now choose a destination folder for the export, where all the extracted data will be saved on the file system. At this point, we can save the export specification details as an XML file by clicking Save. This file contains all the export details and can be used later on to run the exporter in command line mode. We'll skip this step and click Next. The exporter begins the export process. While showing the progress bar, you can view all the actions performed by the exporter, including errors and warnings, if any. When the export is done, we can name our LiveLink export and load the content to the source panel in Deployer. Once Deployer is done loading, we can explore the hierarchy of the LiveLink content and see that all of the same exported content now resides in the Deployer project along with all of its metadata, a compound document with all of its items, a discussion board with several topics, the HR folder containing a couple of documents with multiple versions, and so on. In the Target panel of Deployer, we will load the data from our target SharePoint 2010. This is done by right-clicking in the target area and selecting Connect to SharePoint. The connection wizard appears to guide us through the process of connecting to SharePoint and loading the content. When we click Next, we are required to specify the connection details. First, we will fill in our server address. This can be done by entering the server's name or IP address. To make sure you have the correct information, please consult with your system administrator. Next, we enter our credentials. The user connecting to SharePoint must have sufficient privileges in order for Deployer to write the changes to SharePoint. Please refer to our Tzunami Deployer user guide for more information regarding permissions. After the connection to the SharePoint server was made, we choose which web applications we would like to load into our project. We are now able to decide how we would like to load our SharePoint structure. It is recommended to load the minimum amount of content required for your specific migration project. First, we choose which site collections we wish to load to our project. When the Read Subsites option is checked, Deployer will read all subsites under the site collection. Under the Content tab, we can select to read all the lists, only libraries, or neither. The same option applies for loading item versions. We can choose to read all the versions, only the latest version, or none of the versions. When no sites and no lists are selected, the loading process is expedited, and we are able to reload any content from our SharePoint target panel at any time. For now, we'll load all the content. Under the Active Directory tab, we can select the domains we would like to read into the project. This enables Deployer to retrieve a list of all available users and groups. When we are satisfied with our structure, we click Next and Done, and Deployer begins reading the selected content into our Deployer project. As you can see, the hierarchy is displayed in a tree structure, and we can reload any items onto our project that were not previously selected during the connection. For example, we can right-click on another site that has not yet been loaded and select Reload Item. To deploy content from our source to our target, we can use several methods. The first and easiest of which is to drag and drop our selected content to the desired destination in the target. We will select our LiveLink folder and drag it to our demo site collection. The Deploy wizard appears to guide us through the process of deploying the selected items to SharePoint. In the first step, we choose if we would like to deploy the files along with their security. Choosing to deploy the items without their security will make the deployment process faster. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll choose not to deploy to security. We start by specifying the global settings. For example, we can decide how Deployer will name files with duplicate file names. We can also choose the specific number of versions to be deployed. Under the List tab, we are able to control some of the list settings in SharePoint, such as support major and minor versions and attachments. In the Define Deployment Structure panel, we have the ability to control the hierarchy of our deployment, including site and list templates, folders, and so on. The deployer automatically suggests how to deploy the items from LiveLink to the corresponding SharePoint items. For example, a compound document might be migrated as a folder, the discussion from LiveLink will be migrated as a new discussion board, HR and legal will both be migrated as a new document library, our new channel can be designated as an existing announcements list, we can tell Deployer to use the existing tasks for the tasks folder, Project A will be migrated as a subsite, and again, we have the ability to select the various options. We'll continue with the default options. Now we will perform the property mapping step. On the left, Deployer displays a list of properties that exist in the items and containers exported from LiveLink. On the right, we can view a list of properties that are available for us from the target SharePoint. Deployer automatically suggests some of the basic mappings. For example, the created and modified properties are already mapped. Deployer enables us to map any of these properties according to our own specifications. To do so, we select the property from the source list and the matching property from the target list and click Map. The link above can be used in case the target has fewer properties than the source. This will tell Deployer to add any of the missing properties that we select. We'll choose to maintain the LiveLink ID and LiveLink item type for our future reference. Now that we have finished mapping our properties, we need to map the associated values of these properties. Once again, the Deployer intuitively maps values in the source to target values with the same name. For example, the high, medium, and low priorities are automatically mapped. As we did for the property mapping, we can select our own value mappings using the Map button. We'll change the default priority value mapping to be empty. We'll click Next, and we are now ready to deploy. During this phase, Deployer applies all of the deployment settings and mappings that we've selected. When the deployment is finished, we can open the deploy reports. These reports will allow us to view any errors and warnings that may have occurred during the virtual deployment. This enables us to make any modifications prior to the commit phase, such as changing an exceedingly long URL path or enabling a blocked extension. We will now be able to take a look at the results of the deployment. Within Deployer, we can view the properties in the target panel and confirm that the metadata associated with the items which we plan to migrate to SharePoint are all preserved according to our specifications. Now, assuming that we're satisfied with the migration, we'll commit the changes to SharePoint. By committing our project, we tell Deployer to perform all the changes that we made virtually and write these changes to SharePoint. During the commit, the actual content migration physically copies the source items to the target library, list, or folder on the SharePoint site, while updating their metadata properties according to the Tzunami Deployer project definitions. We can open the commit report to view any warnings or errors that may have occurred when writing the selected content to SharePoint. Once the commit has finished, we'll right-click the new site and choose Open in order to open it in SharePoint via Internet Explorer. We can take a look at all the site content and see that the migration was successful. This concludes our Tzunami Deployer demonstration for the migration of content from LiveLink to SharePoint 2010. We thank you for your time and welcome you to visit our website to download an evaluation version of Tzunami Deployer for LiveLink and learn more about the Tzunami family of products.